Oh, hi, boys and girls. I was just out here in Camp Valley View working on my birdhouse, and I heard there's a few of you that need to catch up on your reading. Well, I've got a copy of the book here. What do you guys think about taking a break and reading a little bit? I found a nice spot right over here. Come on, follow me. Well, how are you guys liking the book so far? I found it pretty fun. It is quite an adventure they're going on, huh?
Well, here we go. Let's get started. Nuts to You, Chapter 8 In the Blink of an Eye. Squirrels slumbered in warm nests of dried grasses, but their piece of the world was tilting towards winter, and the air outside turned icy. Filmy dew stiffened into frost around each leaf and twig. When the sun rose, the frozen crystals sparkled like a million diamonds, but only for a moment. Sunlight melted the diamonds into water, and the frosty air lost its bite. Autumn trees glowed golden. Around the grove, creatures of the night grew drowsy, blinked, and closed their eyes. The creatures of the day woke up, felt a little hungry, and called out to one another. As Jed awoke, his dreams evaporated. They left behind a sticky feeling, but he willed it away. He counted his blessings on his fingers. Not eaten by a hawk. Landed in a foreign but friendly country. There is food. He had 2 fingers left, but that was enough, he figured, for starters. There was a chattering close by, and Jed listened, getting his ears used to the reddish accent again before jumping into the day. He soon realized they were talking about him. Anyone can escape from a hawk. Well, there is a thing I have not heard before, said a high and scratchy voice. Are you thinking it's true, then? Said another, in a lower voice. Well, if it is, maybe he should be king or something, said the first. Teller of tales, maybe, said the second. King, or something like that, said the high voice. Governor, maybe, or hero. Being lucky don't make you a hero. It does if you ask me. Luck is catchy. Nobody asked you, though, did they? The voices moved out of Jed's hearing, and he smiled. It was going to be an interesting day. He took a deep breath, stepped outside, and looked around, and thought just for an instant that he saw 2 gray squirrels through the gap of the branches. Not any 2 gray squirrels, but his best friends, Chai and Tistis. He blinked his eyes and rubbed them with his paws. When he looked again, sure enough, the gray squirrels were gone. His imagination. I didn't know I was such a sap, he said to himself. But before he could think about it further, 3 reddish squirrels joined him on his limb. They wanted to hear again the story of how he escaped from the hawk. Tell about the wolf, said the squirrel, called Pooft. There wasn't no wolf, said Sam. Just tell it then, said Pooft. How do you escaped, in all? But first, the snatching bit. The snatching bit is the start of it. They settled themselves in nearby branches to listen. It's nice when someone wants to hear your story, especially when you are in a strange new place. As Jed told it, more of the reddish squirrels drew close. Some of them shouted prompts when they thought he might be leaving something out. Maybe it was because they were all sitting so still, mostly, that they had heard the rumbling sound start up in the distance. It was an unnatural sound, which rose and fell. Jed paused, and they all listened. Maybe it's all us here, said Chuck, and we don't pay it no mind. They listened for a moment more, but no one could identify it. They decided it was too far away to worry about. Tell us the escaping part, urged Sam. That's the best part. Teach us the secret trick, said Poof. The escaping from Hawk's trick. It wasn't really a trick exactly, Jed told them. It was remembering everything I knew about hawks. It was trying to stay calm and focused. And, he added honestly, a lot of it was pure luck. The trick, they called out. Teach us the trick. They began to chant. The trick, thump, the trick, thump, the trick, thump. Teach us all the trick. The thumps were clapping and foot stomping. It wasn't much of a sound, just a beat. Then some of the squirrels began to feel that the point wasn't so much the trick, but that Jed wasn't sharing. And a second chant went up, mingling with the first. Share, thump, share, thump. Show us all how you do that slippery thing that helped you escape. Their hearts were in the right place, but they weren't very good at rhythm or rhyming. Even so, they kept at it, and Jed could see there was no getting out of it. He jumped to the ground, and everyone followed. He told them to form a circle around him. First they did some stretches, then they took some deep breaths. After that, he instructed them to first tense up with all their muscles and then relax. A crash course in high tree. Like water, he kept saying. Make your muscles like water. You can slip through the cracks. The squirrels swayed and wobbled as they tried to figure out how to be like water. Do you mean as raindrops, or be as a merry brook? Asked Sam, undulating his arms gracefully. Poofed has been being raindrops, he said, and she was. She was kicking up her hind feet and landing on her bum. I'll have to be an awfully big crack, she said. I ain't slipping through nothin' just yet. I'm a sweet pond, said Chirka, who had curled up into a circle on the ground. She yawned and then started to laugh. I'm be a pond too, then, said Poofed. Look safer. Chuck concentrated on the tensing up and then relaxing part. He ignored the bunny hop line of squirrels that was forming. Bunch of twits, he muttered. We air but mere drops in a mighty stream, Sam sang out from a hopping queue. Things were falling apart fast. Jed didn't really care, but he thought he'd try at least to wrap it all up. Okay, 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 he shouted. The bouncing line was traveling in a circle around him. He was able to get everyone to turn and face him again. One last time, he said, we'll all do it together. And don't get up until I tell you. 1, 2, 3, be like water! And all the squirrels fell to the ground, limp. A couple of them fell asleep. It was a good thing no hawk was in the vicinity. It would have been an all-you-can-eat squirrel buffet. After a few minutes, the squirrels started quivering with suppressed laughter. Then Chirka jumped up and said, I can do it now, all done, and off she went. That was it. Off they all went. But as they all went about their business, squirreling through the trees and gathering seeds and whatnot, they turned the high tree lesson into a game. One of them would shout, be like water! And they would all fall from their branches and drop through the air. The game was to stay limp for as long as possible before flipping around and landing on your feet. The rumbling was closer now. It was a sound. It was also a vibration. It was like thunder, except it didn't start and stop. It just kept going. It did go up and down, sort of. No one quite knew what to make of it. The conversation about it happened in passing bits and snatches. Some squirrels wondered if it had been an unusual new type of weather on the way, maybe a storm. Others favored the idea that it was a horrible beast of some kind. Storm or beast, said Sam, to anyone who would listen. Neither my top's favorites. And or morning, said all, shaking their heads. Unregardless, counseled Chuck. Hoot's the best, and has lots of food stashed in lots of nooks. Everyone agreed with that. So they kept on with their gathering. As long as you were gathering seeds, you might as well play. Be like water! Squirrels fell from the tree like overripe pine cones. Jed had to laugh. Everyone was laughing. Laughing and falling. Meanwhile, a little earlier, and a little ways off, Tis and Chai had crawled from their makeshift dray. Bits of seeds and stems littered their fur. They took a few cautious steps and sniffed at the crisp autumn air. All around the leaves glowed green and golden, vermilion, scarlet, lemony, and amber. Far above was a hazy blue sky. The morning was glorious. And yet, said Chai, something doesn't feel right. It's just that we're not at home, said Tis. I don't know, said Chai. I think it's more than that. Like, what's with the rumbling noise? I don't know, said Tis Tis. Maybe it just does that here. I don't like it, grumbled Chai. He was cranky. He had expected Tis Tis to wake up and realize it was time to go home. Instead, she was all refreshed and ready to go on. Lighten up, she said. I'm hungry, though. Let's find some breakfast. She plucked one of the seeds clinging to her fur and popped it in her mouth and made a face. Blech! Don't eat this kind, she said, pulling another one off and holding it up for Chai to see. She shook her paw to get rid of it. It had little barbs that help it stick to things like fur. They headed down into the underbrush to search for food. What they wanted was nuts, specifically acorns, but it seemed this wasn't an okay part of the forest. So they foraged for seeds and they found some dried up berries. Maybe you have had the experience of waking up in a place where the breakfast is different from what you are used to. Let's say your traditional breakfast food is leftover pizza, and you wake up where they eat hard-boiled eggs, or seaweed, or oatmeal, or termites, or vice versa. It can throw you off. So Chai and Tis Tis found some food, but there was a part inside each of them. It was their mouth, and the taste buds. Stomach-wise they were fine. That was still waiting for the acorns to arrive. And that rumbling noise. It was bothering them both, no matter what Tis Tis said. Nevertheless, they began their search. Every day they had at least something to aim for. Now it was hard to know where to begin. They climbed the closest tree and made their way along the first bough, scanning to the right and to the left. Branches were strangely empty. I wonder where all the squirrels are, said Tis Tis. Someplace with better food is my guess, said Chai. And then, without warning, he came to a halt. Tis Tis nearly crashed into him. What are you doing? She said. Why did you stop? Look, he said softly. I found where all the squirrels are. Tis Tis followed his gaze to a strange and fearful sight. She gasped. Looking down through a gap in the foliage, they saw a circle of squirrels laying lifeless on the earth below. Their light bellies faced up, and their paws were in the air. There was no blood, no signs of a fight. What do you think? Said Chai. Bad mushrooms, maybe? I guess we'd better be careful what we eat, said Tis Tis. She remembered their weird breakfast. How do you feel? She asked. Okay, said Chai, so far. They turned away from the horrible scene and moved on. Before long, the squirrels began to appear in the trees. The squirrels seemed very much alive. They were smallish and reddish, but it was hard to make out what they were chattering about. Then all at once, one of them shouted something about water and fell, along with his companion, from the tree. Then it happened again. And again. The two friends exchanged glances. I think we'd better be careful of what we drink, too, said Tis Tis. At least it should be easy to spot Jed, she thought to herself, since he is gray and there are so many red ones. And as if her thought made it happen, a gray squirrel darted across a branch a few yards ahead of her. Jed! She cried out. The gray squirrel froze. He knew that voice, but he was sure his homesick imagination was playing tricks on him again. He told himself he would not even look. He took a step forward and whisked his tail, a nervous gesture. That did it. Tis Tis knew that tail whisk like she knew her own paw. Jed! She called out again. It's me, Tis Tis! Jed could not help himself. He turned and looked, and saw not only Tis Tis, but Chai. 3 hearts jumped for joy. 3 pairs of skinny black eyes looked from one another in happy disbelief. They started towards one another. But at that instant, the rumbling, which had been growing ever louder and closer, exploded into an ear-splitting racket of grinding and whining and cracking. And before they could step onto the branch that crossed between them, it shuddered and then dropped right out of sight. It fell to the earth with a crack and a thud. Another higher branch fell, and then another. By the time the third branch fell, they were gone, turning and running like every nearby creature, running, flying, creeping, whatever they had to do to get away from wherever it was. No Stopped to see if the noise was a storm or a beast. There was only scattering as chunks of tree fell through the air, scattering to where your ears were not blasted, where the forest was still held together. They scattered with no thought of anything, of any other creature, friend or foe. No thought but escape. Behind them the tremendous racket went on. It was loud as a thunderclap, but a thunderclap is brief. It's there and it's gone. This loudness moved in and stayed. It was taking the forest apart, piece by piece. The friendly tangles of the grove were slashed out of the air, leaving a great raw emptiness. Amid streaming flashes of silver, homes and highways crashed to the ground. They were piled up in heaps of wreckage. There was nothing to do but run, escape, scatter.
Wow, that was intense. I can't wait to hear what happens Monday. I hope you guys are enjoying the book and enjoying Camp Valley View. We'll see you out here next time you come out for a trip. Have a good day, kids.
With a ranger's hat and shovel and a pair of dungarees, you will find him in the forest always sniffing at the breeze. People stop and pay attention when he tells them to beware, 'cause everybody knows
Only you
he's the
can
fire
prevent wildfires.
Smokey the bear, Smokey the bear, prowling and a growling and a sniff in the air. He can find a fire before it starts to flame. That's why they call him Smokey. That was how he got his name.